In this artwork, I'm starting to really think about how artists work. Whether you work intuitively or do you plan your artwork from the very beginning, thinking about exactly what your piece is going to look like at the end, or do you allow things to happen along the way and let that guide you? It's about looking and observing, but also listening to that inner voice and what is it speaking as you work. When I start my artwork, I usually have some kind of an idea, a prompt. And in this case, it was listen and look. Just really thinking about my subject matter and how their hearing and their observation really work towards their survival. An owl is all of that. And it's a really beautiful subject matter that a few years ago, my husband and I went searching for this owl. We knew that this owl would come to the same resting place to raise their young. And it's kind of a hidden spot, a spot that some birders know, but we don't share because we want the owl to be able to raise their young in peace. This great horned owl is captured looking straight out at us and observing us as much as we are observing them, and probably wondering, what are we doing there? Why are we looking at them? And probably wanting us to take a few shots and then leave her alone to nest. But in thinking about that and how artists work, it's that intuitive voice that is inside us, the one that we listen to and hear, but also our outward look on life and how we use planning to really think about our subject matter. For me, I use a little bit of both. I know some artists spend weeks and weeks and weeks planning and sketching and swatching and doing thumbnails and value studies and doing research. For me, it's a little bit of a combination. I really like to have something that I can respond to. And that's part of that intuitive piece inside of me, that I don't like the blank paper. So I tend to start with a little bit more fluidity in my artwork. And here I actually started with some water-soluble graphite, allowing that graphite to just be really loose and then coming in with water. And once that water-soluble graphite is activated by water, it becomes permanent. So all of my marks will stay no matter what layers I build. I also went in with some Inktense pencils, which also, once they are activated with water and dry, become permanent as well. And even just using some acrylic Posca pens dipped in water and then splattering them into the wet areas that I've already created with other soluble materials creates this fluidity that I can't control and I can't plan. But once that is dried, I can come back over it with more permanent brush strokes and thinking about how I'm going to respond to what's already there on the paper and build layers. The owl itself, the feathers are such an important part of the way it sees the world and hears the world. So that look and listen is so important to owls and how they hunt their prey. All of those feathers radiating out from their eyes and turning those sounds toward their ears. Here is a great horned owl, and those tufts at the top are not actually its ears, but a way of camouflaging it and breaking up its silhouette so that it blends more into its background. But thinking about how they use all of these structures to really help them survive. And for me as an artist, using that plan and that intuition and thinking about my voice, eventually I will put my photographs and images away, and I don't allow them to lead me anymore, so that I have to respond to what's there. I have to look more at values. I have to look more at my actual brush strokes. And I use a very limited palette. Here I just was using a burnt umber, a Payne's gray for my darks, and a really beautiful violet and dairy light yellow. The dairy light yellow was chosen because of the intenseness yellow of those eyes, but once it's mixed with some other of my pigments, it really starts to become much duller and more brown and blends in, which allows those eyes to really shine. And that part of looking into those owl's eyes was just so important to me. But using that limited palette also provides me a way of play that is limited, and again pushes me to use some intuition with how I mix those colors, how I'm going to apply them to the surface. I like to work on paper, which is what I'm doing here, just because I live very small and do not have a large area to keep all of these artworks. And again, as I continue working, thinking about what are my next steps? And eventually this piece, although not in this video, will be collaged. And again, I put aside everything, so I have to work intuitively.